Hello and welcome to Wind in Her Hair. I'm Anna, your host. And today I have Christian Ray Flores on as my guest. Very interesting story. He was born in Moscow, survived war zones, political oppression, life as a refugee, and rose to become an international recording artist and pop star. Today, he's an entrepreneur, performance coach, and author of the little book of Big Reasons to Love America, which I haven't read yet. I need to. And also, he's an evangelist and founder of Exponential, which is helping leaders build lives of purpose, personal flourishing, and meaningful relationships. This is what caught my eye to bring you on as my guest, Christian. And I love too that basically it's like a masterclass in what it means to become the man you were built to be and go through so much and still become better because of it. And a lot of people let it keep them down.
That is true. Thank you. Thanks for the introduction. Thanks for having me. And it's absolutely true. Yeah. I think relationships are, bottom line, is the key to, it's a foundational piece to any success in any space. And so what you're doing is quite significant because it is foundational that way.
Thank you so much. And would you like to elaborate on yourself a little more? Tell my listeners what you're doing specifically these days.
So I have a coaching program called Exponential, and it focuses on personal brand development and strategy, right? So it's basically focused on people who have expertise, who want that expertise to be known more broadly. And for them, whether they're working inside a big company or are entrepreneurs or are socialpreneurs, to become known and trusted by a larger audience, have more impact. That's basically what I do.
Okay. And I gathered some questions from you online, and I think it's interesting. The first question I have is that you went from refugee to pop star to faith-driven coach. Is that true?
Yeah,
okay.
That is true.
Okay. Most people would have stopped at the fame, but what happened inside you that made success feel empty without purpose?
It's a boring story because it's so cliche to a degree. Like, most people take a long time to get to like a mountaintop experience, right? You work for 2 or 3 decades before you hit that sort of, I am the boss, I have influence, I have impact, I have income, all of those things. And then those of us who are either both lucky and unlucky enough to get all of that in your mid-20s, you usually, from that mountaintop, you realize the mountaintop you imagined is not the mountaintop that you need. So I became very famous across 15 different countries, post-Soviet space, basically, as a pop artist. And I was doing sports arenas. I was on television, magazine covers, radio, the whole thing, right? Most of it was pre-internet. And I realized, oh my gosh, it's not as fulfilling, I'm not a happier person. As a matter of fact, I'm maybe significantly unhappier. And now what? And what was lacking was sort of beyond the trappings, the results of high success. There are things that drive you that are deeper. And for me specifically, it was, I wanted to do philanthropy. I wanted to do business. I wanted to actually not be to this particular space geographically. I'm an international person. I grew up all over the world. So I had interests that are way beyond the space that I was in. So there's all these layers, the deeper layers, right? Of, oh, actually, this is the stuff that moves me. This is the stuff that I'm passionate about, that you get in touch with once you have arrived at what you thought would fulfill you. And so I basically just looked around on the mountaintop and going, okay, this is probably not where I want to stay. And I devoted myself to some faith-based work, some ministry work, philanthropy work. And then eventually we moved stateside, and we started 3 different companies, 2 nonprofits. Some of them went well, some of them did not go well at all. But that's the story.
And when you say we, is it your wife or your
My wife and I, yeah. Okay. Yeah, my wife and I. Everything we do together, yes.
How long have you been married?
We've been married for 27 years.
Wow. Is that your first marriage?
It's my first marriage, yes.
Yes. And how many children do you have?
We have 3 daughters. And as a matter of fact, like, I think because your focus is on, and so I just didn't have any guidance. And on top of that, I had that layer of a traumatic experience of my parents' divorce that wrecked me for years to come. So I was really lost. And if you pair that with, if you're a pop star, if girls all over 15 different countries have posters on their walls of you, that like adds a whole layer of complexity to your romantic
Mhm.
life, you know? So,
Mhm.
so I became very disillusioned very quickly and also lost. And in my faith came in through that angle because I met somebody who was a guy who was a pastor, Canadian pastor actually, and I said, well, let me just then I need that, right? So
Mhm.
so he mentored me, and lo and behold, it's all true. 27 years after getting married to Deb, my wife, who I met in LA, by the way, it's the most valuable thing in my life, my family.
So what would you say your faith is? Christian?
Christian faith, yeah.
Okay. And then how long ago did you get saved? Like become a believer?
I became a believer when I was 26 years old. I'm 57 right now. So,
Okay.
yeah, so
Before you
30,
met your
30
wife?
years
Right.
before I met my wife, yeah.
Right.
And
Okay.
as a matter of fact, I met my wife, and faith had a decisive role in meeting her, courting her,
Yeah.
how we build our relationship. All of that is infused by the Bible and Christian faith.
I think it's so interesting. Really quick, I just wanted to touch on what it was like to be raised by atheists.
It was fantastic. Okay, so let's put it this way. They My parents actually did the best they could, and they were great parents,
Mhm.
both of them. So I was very, very fortunate to have loving, caring, present parents. Both of them
Mhm.
were. So that was a massive, massive positive. Still an advantage that I'm privileged to take advantage of. Right? It's when you have when your origin story includes, let's say, abusive, emotionally unavailable parents. That's a whole different layer. I didn't have any of that. I had present, loving parents.
Mhm.
What I didn't have is a framework of life, the Bible. I didn't have any of that. So sort of the moral, ethical framework was just non-existent. So I basically, mine consisted of of this mosaic of things that I just sort of, breathed in from the ether through my pores.
Mhm.
And that was sort of my worldview. And obviously it was inconsistent with the truth, inconsistent with flourishing. So, so I just didn't have some of the things that are required to succeed at a
Mhm.
deeper level.
I think it's interesting though that you were raised by atheists, but then you became a Christian yourself.
Yeah.
And what do your parents think about that? Did they become Christian as well?
My mom did.
Because
My
of you?
mom, yeah, my mom became Christian. She's still a faithful Christian.
Mhm. I wanted to say also that you talked about becoming the kind of husband and father you never saw growing up. And how did a man who didn't have that modeled for him figure out what it exactly looks like? And you started to touch on this a minute ago.
It's really mentorship. The Christian word is discipleship, right?
Mhm.
You walk with people who are implementing the Christian faith in real life, and you go, okay, you have something I don't have. How do I do that? And it's just being around people who are ahead of you, maybe a decade or so, they have successful whatever businesses, families, lives, and you attach yourself to them and you apprentice under them. That's basically what I did. And to be honest, a lot of my dad and my mom both gave me a lot. So I did have and still have incredible parents. They just didn't have these massive dimensions of life as part of their journey,
Mhm.
right? They grew up in a non-Christian home as well, so they passed on the best they knew.
Are you familiar with the attachment styles?
Yes,
So, what would you say your attachment style is now? I
secure,
mean,
very secure. Yeah.
secure. What will be your
With
second runner up, like the one behind that? Because
okay,
nobody's 100% secure, but
oh, that's a good question. Can you remind me the other ones?
yes. So, anxious, preoccupied, fearful, avoidant, dismissive, avoidant. So, the dismissive avoidance, the most high achieving men are dismissive avoidant. They're killing it in business, but failing their love lives because they don't love conflict. They don't know how to get in tune with their emotions. They don't create
Uh-huh.
emotional safety for their wife. Anxious, preoccupied are the ones who have to be in a relationship. Most of the time, they feel insecure when you're not texting them kind of throughout the day. It's hard for
Mhm.
them to be alone.
Okay.
Fearful avoidant is like in between those. So when I have my clients take the test, there's this pie graph, a percentage, and
Yeah,
it's
I was probably in between those two originally,
mhm,
and maybe that's still my secondary one. but because of honestly 30 years of a lot of work,
Mhm.
I'm definitely the vast majority secure,
Mhm.
you
Yeah, I would
know?
say that too. In order to be secure, you have to be working on yourself.
Yeah,
And
decades. So
and when you're okay in a relationship, you're okay not in a relationship, but when you are in a relationship, you're interdependent. You're not
yeah, yeah,
independent, you're not codependent. There's like
that's right. Yeah,
a
we're
healthy
very,
blend.
very interdependent. We have an
Mhm.
amazing marriage, but we've worked at this marriage for 27 years straight, nonstop. Like it's not like,
Mhm.
here and there. It's nonstop. So
Well,
yeah, I think the vast majority is definitely secure now, both for me and my wife.
congratulations.
Thank
That's
you.
like
Yes,
a high achievement.
it
If we had
is.
more securely attached people in this world, the world would be a better place.
Absolutely. I mean, by far, this is
Mhm.
relationships in general, but marriage in particular.
Mhm.
It is the hardest thing. It's much harder than building a, it's, I just took it very seriously. I think I had the advantage, the unfair advantage of having so low skills in that to take it that seriously to get high skills. So that's my journey. My journey is that I didn't come from a background where you're likely to succeed. I come from the background that you're highly unlikely to succeed. And I
Mhm.
just decided I'm going to actually succeed. So I'm going to set aside everything else, make it secondary to this one thing. And I took this one thing seriously enough to be now very successful at it.
And this one thing being your relationship with your wife?
Yeah, family.
Okay. What I want to ask quickly, what's maybe the one thing that you realized that you had to work on the most in your marriage on yourself? What was your biggest struggle that you had to overcome? Being in your ego or pride or patience or
I'm going to go theological on you.
go for it. Bring it
Um,
on.
I think we all inherit sort of gender roles, like some sort of construct in our minds, and it's infused by culture, parents, whatever, right? Lived experience. Uh, I learned from scripture that there's this concept in Ephesians 5 of headship. So the husband is to be the head of the family. The wife needs to submit to her husband. That can be misconstrued and completely misread, and is a lot. But
Mm,
going to the deeper levels of what that means, the intention behind it, the heart behind it, and the truth behind it, in theologically, was a huge deal. It's always been sort of it's a continuous, almost like North Star for me. So the big concept for me is that this authority that you may have with somebody who said yes to you and said, I'm going to be with you
mhm,
and forever, I'm going to devote my life to you, is your authority is not an authority that is given to you just because you're male or just because you're a husband.
mhm,
So this concept is of derived authority. Your authority with your wife is directly proportional to Jesus' authority in your life. And it's a derived authority that is passed on. And that's the only healthy way to see that authority. It's not because I'm male. It's not because I'm Deb's husband. It's only dependent on how closely I walk with Christ and God, right? She will follow me proportionally to that. And my role is, and then the other piece of that, and I think it's a big deal. I see that everywhere. People not really understanding that concept, and because of that, their marriage will suffer, will be not what it's designed to be. In pursuing that, I think my marriage has flourished over time, and it was the hardest thing for me. Still the hardest thing for me because it's such a high calling. Even higher calling is that one phrase that says that the job of the husband is to present your wife radiant before Christ.
mhm,
So the job of the husband is not to just provide, protect, and procreate, let's say, right?
mhm,
It's much higher than that. The calling of a husband is to make my life harder so her life is easier. Make
mhm,
my life, to lay down my life so that she would radiate with joy and
mhm.
harmony. That's the calling. That's the job, basically. So such a high. I mean, that's why it's the hardest thing.
So that's what
And
you struggled with, you're saying.
what does that mean? How do I
Right.
do that?
Okay. Mhm.
How do I not only faithful, not only provide faithfulness or provision or protection, how do I make her radiant? What does that mean for my schedule? What does that mean for the way I speak to her?
Mhm.
What does that mean for how I spend my money or how I listen to her
Mhm.
aspirations, her desires, my kids?
Another
Mhm.
translation of that is to present her pure and blameless. So I'm thinking for
Yeah.
people who are listening, when you say the word radiant, what are some
Yes.
other adjectives or how could you explain that better?
I think pure and blameless. I think safe,
Mhm.
provided for, cared for,
Maybe
uh,
nurtured, like, and you're investing
nurtured.
in her.
Nurtured. Yes,
Yeah.
emotional nurturing.
Mhm.
That's exactly it. So, and actually, that's what makes it such a pursuit. It's not really a one thing. It's a journey.
Mhm.
Is that it's a mystery. It's the mystery, and
Mhm.
it parallels in Ephesians 5 the mystery of Jesus and the church. That's literally what he says. He says
Mhm.
it is a mystery, and it's connected directly between the direct connection between that mystery of marriage to the mystery of Jesus and the church. And the more you meditate on this, the more you make changes in your life, the more you implement this in daily things, very simple, sort of mundane things. Okay, Jesus laid down his life for the church. How do I lay down my life in a way that's more aligned with that for my wife? And I think it's the challenge of a lifetime for me.
Mhm. And especially the word sacrifice means you're laying down something you love for the benefit of another.
Absolutely.
And I studied that word because in my marriage, unfortunately, my ex didn't learn what sacrifice meant. There was never a desire to lay down something he loved for the benefit of me or the kids. And
Hmm.
that is so detrimental and damaging. You said
Yes.
following Christ felt like it would destroy your career. That's a real fear a lot of high achieving men have, that faith and ambition can't coexist. How did
Yes.
you resolve that tension about faith and ambition?
Well, and again, I want to go theological on you. There's selfish ambition, then there's godly ambition. So it's really not that complicated. It's very hard in practice, right? But selfish ambition is like you are the measure of your ambition. What you want is what you want. Your plan is your plan. Your aspiration is your aspiration. Your drive is your drive. And you take that as your North Star. And a much higher calling is to understand that you are now part of the kingdom of God. You have dominion. King Jesus gives you dominion over what he gave you from before you were born. He gave you a territory. He gave you the thing that he had you wants
Mhm.
you to do when you walk on this earth. And then the ambition, I think it's humbler because you go, okay, my role is not to say what I want and take it. My role is to find out what I'm supposed to do and
Mhm.
then give it my whole heart and then serve my
Mhm.
master and multiply his. But it's a much more ambitious approach in the long run because God's dominion for you, it's much higher than your dominion for you. It's much higher.
So true.
If you just align yourself with God's will.
Mhm. I have found that there's nothing more fulfilling than walking in your purpose. I mean, I was a homeschooling mother for over 15 years and I loved it. It was the highlight
Yeah,
of
I
my
believe that.
parenting career. I
Yeah.
loved it every single day. And on top of homeschooling my kids, I would take them on field trips and then I started a family business so we could go on snow trips. My love language is quality time. So I feel like that's almost a curse sometimes because I loved being with my kids, even like teaching them and learning new stuff and going places. I think if it wasn't my love language, maybe I wouldn't have loved it so much. Aside from homeschooling, the next most fulfilling part of my life was realizing what my purpose was. And I've always known that God gave me a voice. And I was like, oh, a singing voice. And I would love to sing one day. I take voice lessons, I write country music, I play guitar. But it's a different type of voice. It's a voice that stands up for truth and shares a message of hope and healing. And I didn't realize this was going to be it on social media and now on a podcast and through speaking engagements and writing my book now. I didn't realize, wow, Lord, like this is what you had for me this whole time. And this all pretty much came to fruition within the last year.
Really? Wow.
And it was because, over a year ago, I was a private flight attendant, and the work died down in Florida where I was living, and I started going on some really bad dates in Miami or in the area, and I was like, "Oh, man, these men need help." So I thought, "Oh," I was a
Y
life coach, like, 7 years ago, and then I thought, "Okay,
okay.
I'll start a coaching business and teach men how to heal the relationship they have with themselves first and foremost." So I'm a relationship coach, but it's not so much like a dating coach as it is a relationship to
I
yourself.
get it. That's really good to
Yeah.
know. It's essentially like a full circle for you,
Mhm,
is that you already had the skills, you were a life coach for a while, and then you came back to it with
mhm.
addressing a new problem, right, that you saw.
Like, narrowing down my niche. Well, you said following Christ felt like it would destroy your career. That's a high a real fear a lot of high achieving men have, that faith and ambition can't coexist. How did you resolve that tension in your life?
Well, what I realized, and this is actually now a big part of my program, is that you the foundation of success in general stands on these four things: your spiritual practice, how you relate to the world at large, how you place you see yourself in, your how you see and practice family, your nuclear family, so marriage, parents, um, kids, your friendships, and your meaningful work. Those are the four pillars. This is well established, well researched. So what it turns out, you can have incredible drive and ambition, which I did and I still have. But these four pillars, if they're not in place, your ambition will actually underperform, not overperform. And so I didn't have the four pillars figured out. I did have the ambition, and I was in the top 1% when it comes to achievement, right? Millions of albums sold. I was playing sports arenas across 15 different countries, but the foundation was not right. So when I address the foundation, I can build my ambition back up again,
Mhm.
that aligned with these four pillars.
And you're saying
And
the foundation was the 4 pillars.
that's the four pillars. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
what part of the 4 pillars did you not have aligned?
All four were messed up.
All 4, okay.
Yeah. I think maybe the one that was good was meaningful work. I always believed in meaningful work and
Mhm,
mission. That was
mhm,
probably the one that was still strong. But a transcendent practice, so spirituality,
mhm,
family, friendships, those were weak. They
mhm,
just weren't figured out. So I was basically standing on one pillar, not a very stable construct.
mhm,
So so I did build a great career, but it didn't have the longevity and the strength and the stability that you need. And I see that all over and over again with high achieving men, is that they will have one or two pillars and then the other two are very weak. And ultimately who they become will will not rise to what they aspire to be. It will drop to those four pillars. So if there's not four pillars, their aspirations will definitely fall short. So and you see that
mhm,
all over the place. It's very well documented historically, biographically. Any biography you read, any high achieving person you see, you'll find that pattern. If they have these four things, they'll go further, they'll go for longer, and they'll fly higher. If you
mhm,
don't have those four things, they might go spike up and have this one dimension figured out, be a billionaire, build a tech company, be a startup founder, and then three startups later and three wives later, they're sort of where they are.
mhm.
So it's very, very common. It's not complicated. And if you figure out those four pillars, you'll do really well for yourself.
So you found out that Christ actually added to your ambition. He was actually helping
Yeah.
that. Whereas
Yeah.
before you thought, "Is this gonna actually help me?"
Yeah. Yeah. And when I became a Christian, I had a pain point. My pain point was family. It just happened to be the primary thing across very well researched data, that family is it's the highest weighted factor in
Mhm,
happiness and long-term performance and success. And then it's friendships, right? And those two things are best served and best calibrated through faith, which is the first thing.
mhm,
So I was just very lucky, but also I was humble and I did the work, right? So
mhm.
really, really helped me in the long run.
That's interesting because I came up with this thing called the 7 pillars
Mm-hmm.
when I first started teaching, which is basically your pillars broken down. So I
Yeah,
start with the emotional and the mental pillar. This is the word I take my clients through. Then the
yeah,
spiritual pillar, the sexual,
Hmm.
the physical, like your health and wellness, fitness, how you take care of your temple,
Hmm.
and your professional, so your career, are you walking in your calling, your financial, are you wise steward of your finances and your gifts? And lastly is relational. So all your relationships with
Yeah.
friends, family. And for me, I realized that if once you have those first 6 pillars really strong and healthy, you can have good relationships with your wife, with your children, with your family. But if you're failing in any way of those 6 pillars, like you said, with your 4 pillars, it's going to be really hard to have successful relationships if your spiritual life is broken or you're
Hmm.
incredibly overweight and just sit on the couch and watch TV all day.
Yeah, yeah. So I think yours and I has
Mhm,
a lot of overlaps. It's not, my focal point is personal brand and professional success. So
mhm.
my pillars are slightly sort of angled, but they overlap quite a bit. I actually have 7 as well. The
Oh,
4 are sort of the foundational. Yeah, I have
mhm.
7 Fs basically. Yeah, it's
7
faith,
F. Mhm,
Fs. Yeah, so it's faith, family, friendships. Force is the one F that I sort of thought, okay, what's the force you are in the world? So
mhm,
basically,
mhm. Like
purposeful work.
profession kind of, yeah,
It's
right.
it's fitness, so your health dimension. Is finance, your finance
Mhm.
dimension, and the last one is fun.
Okay, I love
Yeah,
that.
it's rest. It's
Mhm.
um, it's sort of space.
In your experience coaching high performing men, which is the men that I coach, what's the pattern you see most when it comes to their relationships? And why do men who win everywhere else keep losing at love? So, what's the pattern in their relationships?
That's the $1 million question, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think successful men, including myself, tend to be traumatized men, people who have gone through a lot of trauma.
Hmm.
So that you are fueled as much by ambition as you are by trauma. And there's nothing fundamentally wrong with that. It's just a byproduct. Like you will see a lot of the people that are in the news as great leaders, admired as great founders. Almost every single one of them, I would say 95% or more, have rough origin stories. They do. I do. And I think that's why there's something that lit a fire in you to compensate for the suffering you've gone through, for the lack, for the abuse, for this disharmony. And you just channel it into business, essentially. That's basically what happens. Now, that's very typical. It's uncomplicated in that sense, and there's a very clear pattern there. And I think my answer to that is a fact. It's undeniable. And the trick to long-term success is to switch from that fuel as almost like toxic negative fuel to
Hmm.
positive fuel. And the trick for high achieving men is to recognize, okay, this is fuel. Yeah, it's taking me to the stratosphere of business, for example. But in order for me to have a happy, productive life and to stay strong and to continue to have
Hmm.
impact, I need to fix my relationships. I need to understand how to be a son, a father, a husband,
Hmm.
and create flourishing around me. And people that make that switch, they're the ones that truly, truly succeed. This is true wealth. True wealth is not the bank account, is a house full of love.
I love that what you said about business earlier, how men who are successful in business, their strategies doesn't translate over into the relationship because in business, it's better if you're emotionless, especially in investing, right? They talk about emotionless investing and you don't need emotion to run a successful business. You need emotion. You need to be in tune with your emotions and have emotional depth and intelligence and emotional regulation in order to have a good relationship.
You do.
So, yeah, they're lacking that huge piece and it's sad.
It is. And that's why it's such an important piece that even for me, like this is literally your focal point, right? It's
Mhm,
relational health.
mhm,
For me, that's not my focal point. My focal point is to build a personal brand. But because I know this about successful men and women as well, actually, I still make it part of my program because I want them to succeed, not just build a personal brand. I want them to build a personal brand that lasts, that has deeper impact, and actually makes them happy, right? So
Mhm.
the 7Fs are still there. I still go through these things with them, even though it's not directly connected to the focal point of my coaching.
Mhm. Oh, that's very interesting. I love that. So you're helping them not just succeed in business, but in all areas of their life. Because even if they succeed in business, but they're failing in their relationships, it's
Yeah, the foundation is
yeah.
just not there.
Mhm.
So I might give them the skills and the know-how and the guidance
Mhm.
for personal brand building, which I think it's really, really an amazing thing to have. But if they don't have the foundation right, they're going to fail at it.
That reminds me, years ago before I got divorced, I've been divorced now probably 6 years. I hired my own life coach probably 7 years ago, and she was trying to help me build a business at home, but we kept coming back to my unhealthy marriage. She kind of did what you do, actually, now that I think about it. She said, "Anna, we need to figure this piece out because what
Hmm.
happens within your four walls resonates in your entire life, including your business. So your homework is to figure out and to pray, what can you do to salvage this marriage, or do you need to let it go?" I was like, "That's odd. As a Christian, you don't pray about leaving your husband."
Right.
But but I tried everything under the sun, and I didn't know about attachment styles, so he's dismissive avoidant, which is the hardest ones to have a good relationship with because they're not present emotionally, and there were some things he wouldn't lay down that was hurting the marriage, and, um, narcissistic personality style, which are very hard contenders to deal with, right? And somebody who doesn't wanna work on themselves, you can't change anything. So I prayed about it. I had a piece about letting it go. I was presented this offer to my ex-husband, said, "If we do these things, I think it'll help us." He wasn't willing, so I said, "Okay, peace out." And she changed my life. And so because of that decision to fix that area of my life, I can't even imagine who I would still be if I didn't make that decision.
Yep. Well, because this is a pillar,
Mhm.
fundamental human pillar for success.
Mhm. Mhm.
And if it's not there, it's just not there.
Right.
That's hard. That's really painful. I'm really sorry to hear that.
Mhm.
It's got
Thank
to
you.
be devastating. I mean, I'm the product of parents divorced,
Mhm.
and I just don't want anybody. It's extraordinarily painful.
Well, my parents divorced as well, unfortunately. But like I said, I didn't know what I was signing up for. And when you have somebody who's not willing to lay down certain addictions, who's not honest, you have no relationship there. And I can honestly say we didn't truly love each other, so it wasn't devastating. And I'm thankful now because I am who I am today because of everything that I went through and being able to understand people on a deeper level and studied the Enneagram so I could help people understand themselves on a deeper level. So it was all worth it.
I
What's the one shift, whether it's like mindset, behavior, or belief, that you believe changes everything for a man when it comes to how he shows up in his relationships and his life?
I think if you understand that you have a creator who has a purpose for you, a way of being that is ideal for you, you will treat every relationship you have and everything you do as stewarding the resources given to you. And if you understand that the expectation is for you to not just take it for granted, but to steward it and multiply it and do better,
Mhm.
that's probably the one core thing that probably is universally applicable and helpful to people. What you have was given to you, and you're a steward of it, and your job is to multiply it, to leave whatever relationship, business, um, life in general better than you found it.
That's so true. I do say like men without a mission are tormented, especially
I would
men.
agree with
Like,
that. Yeah.
yeah, they definitely need to be on mission to know what their calling is, their purpose. Otherwise, they lose their drive, their passion, and they just go home and sit on their butt and watch TV.
Yeah. Things go wrong.
Yeah, things go wrong. Yeah. Anything else you'd want to say to my listeners?
Maybe if I can harp a little bit on the thing that I help people with, not for the
Mhm,
sake of me, but for the sake of the people listening.
mhm,
And even using your example, right? You have a passion, you have expertise, you have lived experience, even lived wounds. a desire to help people with them. There never has been a time in history where not only is you can reach anyone anywhere and help at any time, but you can do it more easily. And it's actually a competitive advantage to how things were built 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 50 years ago. There's never been a better time to create and nurture and tell your story through a personal brand, which is exactly what you're doing, Anna.
Mhm.
I'm sure you can attest to the fact that this has been transformative for you, and you've been able to serve more people
Mhm.
in deeper ways and be more aligned with your life mission than ever before. But you had the courage to get it started, to
Mhm.
figure out some skills that you may have not had before, to fill in the gaps, and to actually go through that messy middle of, okay, what do I do? What do I say? How do I say it? How often do I say it? Who do I serve? Exactly how do I help them? All these question marks that people have. And you had the courage to do that and are continuing to be a curious explorer of this thing. But I think you will probably confirm saying, yeah, it's not easy, but it's totally, totally worth it. And everybody with expertise, with a mission, with a passion should explore it because it pays off. I think I would.
Yeah, so worth it. A lot of people go through life not even understanding what their gifts are, and they just think this is it. This is as good as it gets, and they're just existing
That's right.
instead of living fully.
That's right.
So yes, anyone who's listening, if you're not walking in your purpose, you don't know what your gifts are, it's time to find out. Like reach out to Christian.
Thank you.
Or reach out to God. He's, first and
Yeah.
foremost, he'll tell you. But the thing
Yeah,
is, you just have to listen. A lot of people find it hard to sit and listen to God.
I agree with that. And then do something about it, right?
Mhm.
And I think coaching in general is not about information, it's about implementation. It's about getting there
Yeah.
faster, right? So whatever coaches there are, they will get you there faster. And it's so worth it, right? And even, the best coaches, they don't have enough even space to serve everybody who wants to work with them. But, to your point, if you want to work with me, there's a small subset of people that should work with me and I should work with them.
Mhm.
But everybody else can benefit from what I have to offer because I have this free content. I'm coming on your podcast. I have a solo podcast, and I interview people on my podcast called Exponential. And you can find it on YouTube, and it's completely free. It's 100% free. You can subscribe to a newsletter that I run called Exponential Newsletter as well. And it's completely free.
Mhm.
You can benefit from my personal brand without paying me a penny.
Mhm.
And what a wonderful world we live in, where you have access to some of the highest levels of expertise with with zero cost. And then if you want that accelerated, that's when you pay a coach.
Mhm. So true. So we're gonna make sure we put all your links in the show notes so people can find you on exponential.com. Is that it?
So it's exponential without the E, starts with an
Mm.
X, dot
Mhm.
life.
Oh, dot life.
Exponential dot
Okay.
life. Yeah. And then the
Okay.
newsletter is christianrayflores.com. It's just my name.
Okay.
That's my newsletter.
And the podcast is called Exponential, you
Exponential.
said?
Yeah. The
Okay.
Exponential podcast. Yeah.
Amazing. And you post every week?
I post every week. Yeah.
Mhm.
And I do solo episodes and then interviews with people as well.
Mhm. Okay. Awesome. Well, thanks for your time, Christian.
Thank you, Anna, for inviting me. And you will come on my podcast and tell your story.
Oh, yes, I'd be honored. Thank you so much.